Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to the Hungaroring as we approach the midpoint and the summer break for the international GTOpen season. But before we head off on our holidays, we have got two races to look forward to this weekend, starting with the 70-minute race, the seventh race of this season-long Grand Tour around some of Europe's finest circuits. Well, it's hello from Ben Evans as you join us on a sunny but increasingly cloudy afternoon here at the Hungaroring. It was terribly wet for qualifying this morning, and rain is potentially due a little bit later on in the race, which will certainly spice things up. For now, though, we have got the sight of 27 supercars assembly on the grid to enjoy, and heading them is going to be the Lusit Racing Ferrari of Marco Ciocci, who set that pole position time very early in a qualifying session, which got progressively wetter. And he will share the front row of the grid with the Pro-Am pole sitter, the SPS Automotive Mercedes of Tom Onslow-Cole. Coming into the weekend, though, it is Lusit Racing's Michael Mack who leads the championship standings, 12 points clear of the Teo Marti Motorsport pairing of Andres Saravia and Fran Rueda. There is another of the Lusit Racing Ferraris, Marco Ciocci, who this weekend is partnered by Daniel Serra, the reigning Brazilian stock car champion, who starts from pole position, the effervescent Italian, always spectacular whatever the weather, and he was thoroughly enjoying himself during qualifying. Tom Onslow-Cole and Valentin Pierberg currently second in the Pro-Am Championship, just 3 points adrift of class leaders Fabrizio Cristani and Miguel Ramos. And again, Onslow-Cole right on it immediately in qualifying this morning. Pro-Am Championship leader Fabrizio Cristani lines up in third in the Daiko Lazarus Racing Lamborghini Huracan that he shares with Miguel Ramos. Both Cristani and Ramos, former international GTOpen champions, and they have been incredibly consistent through the course of the 2018 campaign. Fourth on the grid, going the way of the Target Racing Lamborghini Huracan of Alberto Di Folco and Stefano Constantini. It was Di Folco who set the laps in qualifying, and he was able to extract a superb performance from the car. When the track was at its wettest, he was really the only driver who was out there able to improve his lap times. So here's the championship leading car then, Michael Mack and Alessandro Pierguidi. Mack, the sole championship leader, as Pierguidi had to miss the Paul Ricard event due to being elsewhere. But Mack, fully focused on the job ahead, he is pursuing his fourth victory of the season. Sixth on the grid to Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, Kang Ling and Eduardo Liberati. And Ling was in really fine form through qualifying, enjoying the conditions, having found the limits early on. Quick spin, but thereafter got his head down and did a great job. So the heat haze shimmering off the grid as the cars assembled. This is Andrea Bertolini, new to the RS Racing team this weekend, alongside Daniele Diamato. Diamato has had one victory this season at Paul Ricard, alongside Andrea Montermini. And Bertolini never quite got the lap that he wanted in qualifying in terms of just being around traffic at the wrong time. The same for Daniel Karlitz, new to the Rinaldi Racing team for this weekend, to partner Steve Parrow in the newly elevated to Pro-Am class number 33 entry. But the Rinaldi cars have been superbly sorted throughout the course of the season. First, the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracans then lines up ninth on the grid. That is the car headed by Riccardo Agostini, with Rick Broikers taking over mid-race. And one of the characteristics of today's race is the grid is somewhat jumbled because all the quickest laps in qualifying came in the first or second flying lap of the session, and therefore, to an extent, track position was as much a decisive factor as the pace of the car. And completing the top 10, Damiano Fioravanti in the Ombra Racing Lamborghini. He and Fernando Reis had a superb weekend at Paul Ricard back in May. It didn't quite go their way at Spa last time out. New to the championship this weekend are a brace of Olymp Racing Audis. Mateusz Likosowski is leading the charge, lining up in 11th place in the car that he shares with Marcin Jedlinski in the Pro-Am class. Am pole position going the way of the HTP Motorsport MS Racing Mercedes of Alexander Fraquina and Martin Conrad, and it is Martin Conrad who put the car on to class pole. Euro Mull and reigning champion Giovanni Venturini, a fair amount to do from 13th on the grid in the second of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracans. But they come into the weekend fourth in the standings, but effectively third, with Pierre Guidi third on the points, having missed the round of sharing the car with Mack, with then Alex West in the Lizit Racing Pro-Am entry, the car that he shares with Michele Rugolo, and West looking really good actually in the wet qualifying session and was further up the field than 14th for much of the session. Busy afternoon ahead for the second place combination in the championship. Andres Saravia and Fran Rueda in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. They've got 20 seconds of success time to overhaul in the pits, and they're starting from 15th on the grid. Giulio Borlenghi, well up in the AM class, 16th on the grid. The car that he shares with Andrei Lewandowski. Borlenghi again, car that was very well suited in qualifying. Now this could be a fascinating car to watch. Rinat Salakov and David Perel, with Salakov very, very quick in the AM class at Spa, partnered with Perel, who put the Rinaldi Ferrari, the car that he was sharing that weekend with Vadim Koge, on pole position. So watch for them challenging in the Pro-Am podium later on in the race.
Yeah, what a qualif. Great job from my team, because we let me go out immediately when the track was in the best configuration, because it was damp, not full wet. I pushed my maximum and I closed a good lap. Later on we try another couple of attempts, but I was not able to improve. But you know, when you have all team cheering for you, pushing for you, but all team, I mean all cars, all loses car, 51, 71, 52. We share data, engineers working together, so it's you have to do it, because if you miss the ball, you don't deserve to these guys what they really need. Now just the first step, now looking forward for the race, which is most important things.
Marco Ciocci, our pole sitter then, with his views on qualifying, and also a chance to get a sense of just how treacherous the conditions were. So the countdown well underway, just 2 minutes now until the green flag lap, and then the 7th race of the season. 27 cars taking to the grid. It's going to be quite the sight as they hurtle down towards turn 1. And this is a track that's always produced great racing. Here, though, is a look back at what happened at Spa-Francorchamps a few weekends ago. In race 1, it was David Perel who led the way into La Source for the first time. As behind, there was plenty of jostling for position. Andrea Montermini losing out after an entanglement with the Umbra Racing Lamborghini Huracan. Also in the wars was Lorenzo Berardo de Viega, the completely innocent victim of that coming together, caused by a quick spin from the Optima Motorsport Audi. However, it was Michael Mack and Sandro Pierguidi who came through to take victory. That move on the Imperiale Racing Huracan decisive. So an extension of the championship lead. Was it Racing Ferrari in race 1? Race 2, however, was all about the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. Fran Rueda and Andres Saravia dominating proceedings, with Rueda having put the car on pole position and leading the way through La Source. As ever, there was plenty of action behind. Joel Eriksson and Richard Gonza in the Senki Motorsport BMW, right in the thick of the action, as was the DriveX Mercedes of Alain Cadet and Marcello Hahn. But in the event, it was a fairly comfortable victory for Rueda and Saravia, taking some points out of Michael Mack's championship lead. So what will the story be today? 70 minutes of racing to look forward to. And here is how they line up in full then, with the front row of the grid, Marco Ciocci and Tom Onslow-Cole, two of the very quickest in the business. Fabrizio Crestani and Alberto Di Folco, a very strong all Lamborghini row 2. Third row of the grid, Michael Mack, the championship leader, alongside Kang Ling, the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini Huracan. Row 4, Andrea Bertolini in the RS Racing Ferrari, alongside Daniel Karwitz. Fifth row of the grid, Riccardo Alexstini and Damiano Fioravanti, two of the young Chargers. Row 6, Mateusz Lewalski and Martin Conrad, the AM class pole sitter. Jerome Mull and Alexander West on row 7. Row 8, Andres Saravia and Julio Borlenghi. Saravia with a lot of racing ahead of him this afternoon. Renat Salikov and Jiatao Liang on row 9, with then Juan Cruz Alvarez in the second of the Teo Martin Motorsport W's, and Marcello Hahn on row 10. Ollie Wilkinson and Antonio Coimbra on row 11. The 12th row of the grid, Miro Konotka and Ricardo Baptista. New entry this weekend, the second Drovex Mercedes. And then Marcio Basso and Stanislaw Jedlinski on the back row of the grid. And that sadly means that Toby Sowry might be a non-starter. So that's the grid, the cars on the formation lap ahead of the 7th race of the season. Thank you for joining us at the Hungaroring this afternoon as the field taking their final chance to inspect the Hungaroring circuit, get a little bit of heat into the control Michelin tyre that they all run with, and managing their tyre allocation through the weekend is also key. There is, of course, the mandatory pit stop that puts the element of strategy into the race. That comes between the 28th and 42nd minute, and we have got a couple of cars carrying success seconds from the previous events, which will just balance things out in terms of challenging for the overall victory. So Teo Martin, deep in conversation with the Michelin team, waiting for the race to get underway. We've always had some really excellent racing here at the Hungaroring in the International GTOpen. Always seems to be very, very close, as Ciocci just bunching the field up. Lots of different marks represented, with Ferrari, Mercedes, Lamborghini all at the front of the field. All smiles in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing pits. That's what it might be. Kangling and Eduardo Liberati, they went well here actually last year when they were with the Raton Racing squad. As the pace car really begin to bunch the field up now as they come towards the end of this formation lap. Of course, it's a rolling start. Daniele Diamato watching to see what Andrea Bertolini can do in the bright orange and white RS Racing. Ferrari starting from the inside of the 4th row of the grid. They'll wind their way uphill now through turns 12 and 13. And then the pace car will peel aside just as they head into the final turn. That'll be the responsibility of Ciocci to pace the field. Good to see Marcio Basso is there towards the tail of the grid. Basso, who picked up a little bit of damage to the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW in qualifying after a spin earlier on. So the Rolling Thunder about to be released here in Hungary. As the pace car peels aside, field roll through the final turn. When they come out, they'll see the red lights on the gantry, and we'll get ready for the lights to change and go racing for the first time this weekend at Hungaroring. And away we go now as the field charge towards turn 1. And it's very, very congested in the midfield as they came past the commentary box. They've all just about found space for each other, but that looked pretty precarious for a moment. Oh, as Cristani launches to try and dart into second, it doesn't quite work. They're 3 wide in the mid-pack. They've all made it through in one piece as Ciocci under immediate pressure from Onslow Cole. Cristani bobbing and weaving behind Defolco in 4th, but for how long? Kang Ling trying to sneak past. Mikkel Mack looking for ground as well, and it's Mikkel Mack who darts past Kang Ling. As the field kicked down through turn 3. Road falls away for the slight climb up towards turn 4. Oh, and Onslow Cole just got caught out there by Ciocci jumping on the brakes, and that almost opened the door to Fabrizio Cristani. Alberto Defolco looking to try and follow through as well. Those cars all in the Pro-Am class. They leap over the curbs through 6 and 7 for the first time. Everybody jostling for a little bit of ground. There is Toby Sowry. In fact, from the back of the grid, and Sowry having a superb first lap, working around Renat Salikov. So the British driver pressing hard as Jiatong Liang up behind the bright pink HTP Motorsport MS Racing Mercedes of Martin Conrad. But here is the fight for lead, and Onslow Cole really fancying his chances of trying to sneak past Marco Ciocci if he can. Mikkel Mack looking to do the same to Alberto Defolco. It's also been a very good start to the race for Andres Saravia, who's leapt up to 10th place through the early running. So that's part of the job done for the Teo Martin Motorsport team. The rest of the field thundering through. A little bit of debris coming off somebody. Venturini and Gianmaria watch on from the Imperiale Racing pit box as Kang Ling looking to the inside. Fioravanti going for him. Oh, that was never going to work. And he thumps into the side of Jerome Mull. And that, I fear, is going to be game over, is it, for the Imperiale Racing Huracan? Mull has got the car up to speed, but that was a big impact. The Ombra Racing Huracan cannoned in to Jerome Mull. Fioravanti, for the time being, has been able to continue. See for how long, as there is the Ombra Lamborghini moving aside. And yellow flag over at turn 1, just that Mull has possibly had to pull the car off the road. Meanwhile, the fight at the front of the field, as they all jink through the chicane, these stiffly sprung cars riding the sausage curves. Oh, there's a tanglement behind, and it's a contact Toby Sowery into Jiatong Liang, and Liang was spun around at the chicane. We'll see if we can get another look at that. We just saw another very, very disappointing lap for the Imperiale Racing team. 2 of their cars involved in incidents. Certainly one of them, absolutely, you could argue, no fault at all of the driver. So, in car with Kang Ling, and Ling in 7th place. That's Daniel Karvitz just ahead of him in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari, pursuing Michael Mack. They're all bunched up behind Marco Ciocci. And Ciocci here, just keeping the field nicely settled at the moment. The leading 7 cars covered by just 3.3 seconds. As they all challenge down in towards first corner as Riccardo Agostini and Andres Saravia go wheel to wheel. As Michael Mack under pressure from Karwitz, also battling going on behind. Saravia still looking to pressurise. The Olymp Racing Audi, the fluorescent yellow and black car, also tucked up just behind as well. So they swoop downhill. And there is the damage, unfortunately, to the Ombra Lamborghini Huracan of Damiano Fioravanti. Door jam solid. So he is into the pits. Also into the pits, can report, is Marcio Basso. And Jerome Mull is still on his way back to the pit area. Jiatong Liang, however, after that spin, has recovered. So this leading group of cars are into the top 6, 2.2 seconds covering them. Onslow Cole looking every which way to sneak past. There is the car of Basso. It had a thump into the tyres in qualifying as Onslow Cole looking to the inside of Ciocci. Great balance at the front of the field, but as Onslow Cole recovers, it brings Crestani into the scrap. And this is an invidious position here for Tom Onslow Cole. If he attacks, it leaves the door open to Crestani. If he defends, it allows Ciocci to ease away. Alberto Di Folco in 4th says, this looks like fun, I'm going to join in as well. And Michael Mack is being propelled into the battle as well through the progress of Karlowitz, as again Onslow Cole looking for any way to try and sneak past Ciocci as the field accelerates out of the final turn. Sprinting through the SPS Automotive Mercedes, closing up behind the Lusit Racing Ferrari. Well defended Marco Ciocci. Or was it? Ciocci slithers out wide at turn 1. He couldn't stop the car and square it off just in time. Onslow Cole takes the lead here at the Hungaroring. Now, can he pull away? Crestani is anxious to get past Ciocci now as well. As the field run downhill out of turn 2 through turn 3. In the AM class, that's still led by Martin Conrad, 12th overall. So everybody focused on this fight at the front of the field, and it's a really good one. And the field split is absolutely negligible at this stage. Top 11 cars got by just 4.7 seconds. So here's another look at the start, and Ciocci anticipated it very well. Onslow Cole, though, using the torque of the Mercedes, to get right up to the Ferrari. This was the midfield, all very, very close, looking for a little bit of ground as Crestani trying to move through to second. Here's how it all felt from Kang Ling's perspective. Now, that was the debris, Giulio Borlenghi to the inside of Ollie Wilkinson. And then this is coming together. Diemelo Fioravanti cannoning into the side of Jerome Mull. Actually, fortunate really that neither car suffered more damage. And there's the spin for Jiatong Liang, fortunately with no harm done. That is the disappointment for Giovanni Venturini after the contact to Jerome Mull. So Fioravanti and Mull plus Marcio Basso are casualties. Meanwhile, Mikel Mack looking to try and line up a move on Alberto Di Folco. The two Luzic Racing Ferraris sandwiching a brace of Lamborghini Huracans. And there comes the move from Mack. Di Folco squeezes and squeezes Mikel Mack. And no way through for the Danish driver. It brings into the mix as well Daniel Karlvitz, as they're going to consider 3 wide into turn 2. Don't consider it for very long, because it was a demonstrably bad idea. But the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari pushes and challenges and takes the place. And Kang Ling is part of this fight as well. So Mikel Mack rolling the dice to try and overhaul Alberto Di Folco, clearly feeling he's got the pace to make some ground, but he's now got a couple of quick cars to try and pick his way past. And all of this has happened in just the first 8 minutes of the race. Here's the race leader though, Tom Onslow Cole. Second place Ciocci, third Crestani, fourth Di Folco, fifth Karlvitz, sixth is Max, seventh Ling, eighth Andrea Bertolini, ninth Riccardo Agostini, and Andres Saravia completes the top 10 with Mateusz Zalski in 11th place. And that top 11, just 6 seconds cover them. Well, we said at the start of the broadcast that the races here at the Hungaroring, the GTOpen, are often very good, and thus far this has proven the point, as in the background Toby Sowry is already up to 12th. Great stuff from Sowry from the back of the grid. It's another look at the coming together between Jerome Mull and Damiano Fioravanti. Fioravanti went for it very late, was completely in Mull's blind spot. Now that was the attempted pass from Mikel Mack on Alberto Di Folco, and Di Folco was determined to shut the door there, come what may. Not unsurprisingly, causing a level of anxiety there for the Luzic Racing team. And now it's the turn of Karlvitz to apply the pressure to Di Folco at the front of the field. Onslow Cole has just set the fastest lap as he tries to ease clear. So Alberto Di Folco runs a little bit wide through turn 2, continues to run a little bit wide. Does that bring Daniel Karlvitz into the mix? The Rinaldi Racing Ferrari pursues the Target Racing Lamborghini Huracan. Flash of the headlights from Karlvitz, which you'd suggest is an exercise in futility. I think that the Italian driver knows the bright green Ferrari is right behind him. But anything you can do just to try and influence the battle any which way. Popping over the curbs on board with Kang Ling. Meanwhile, time on the screen tells us the incident between Toby Sowry and Jiatong Liang on the second lap of the race. Under investigation as Karlvitz has got... Oh, he had the makings of a run there, didn't he, on Di Folco, and he might still do it as Di Folco runs a little bit wide as they head down the hill. There's a gap, is there, to the inside, and Di Folco has to concede it. And Mikel Mack's going to go through as well, as it's a drag race there. Oh, there's more contact between Di Folco and Mikel Mack. Mikel Mack, the Luzic Racing Ferrari, the championship leader, just about sneaks past. And now Kang Ling trying to invite himself into the battle. So is Bertolini. Well, so's half the field, frankly, as they come through the final turn. There's Bertolini to the outside of Kang Ling as they sprint down the Sun Finish straight. They come past our commentary box. It's 3 wide just behind this. We've got the best seat in the house with Kang Ling as Crestani goes to the inside of Marco Ciocci at turn 1. As they plunge on downhill towards turn 2. What a fantastic race this has been so far. We're only 12 minutes in. So, Crestani off in pursuit of Onslow Cole. Now he's in second position. Ciocci in third, Karlvitz in fourth, Mikel Mack fifth. Here's another look at the pass from Fabrizio Crestani to the inside of Marco Ciocci. Crestani went for it late, but by the time Ciocci tried to close the door, there was nothing doing. nod of approval from Miguel Ramos. Dyko Lazarus team having a good start to this race, because the second car, that Toby Sowry, is progressing extremely well. He's up into 8th place. So here, meanwhile, is what happened further back, and it's Alberto Di Folco who unfortunately lost out at turn 1. And Di Folco spinning back down the field to 13th position. And the other driver who is worthy of a mention in dispatches is Andres Saravia, who's had a brilliant start to the race. He's come up into 7th place of the Teo Marti Motorsport squad. And this is what we wondered was going to happen, because the field a little bit jumbled just because of the nature of qualifying this morning. And therefore, some very quick cars a little bit lower down the grid than we would have expected. And now really coming into the mix. The pit window opens in 15 minutes time, so they've got still a big window with which to sort this out on the track between themselves. Andrea Bertolini and Andres Saravia doing battle. This is the fight for 7th place. Here in car with Kang Ling, and there was a tag between Ling and Di Folco, which is what rotated Di Folco. What you couldn't really do from that angle at all is attribute any fault to it, other than it was always going to be very congested. So the SPS Automotive team watching on, and their man Tom Onslow-Cole leads the way. Now, one of the reasons that Onslow-Cole was so keen to try and get clear of the race and some clear air is, firstly, that he thought he got the pace to pull clear, but secondly, he and Valentin Pierberg have got 10 additional success seconds through the pit stop, so the more that Onslow-Cole can split the field, the less pain that that's going to cause. And also, they've got 5 fewer seconds in the pits than Cristani and Ramos in 2nd position. So Onslow-Cole is going to really get his head down and press on. Meanwhile, here's the fight for 3rd between the Luzic Racing Ferrari of Marco Ciocci to the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari of Daniel Karwitz. Karwitz trying to get the run as they head down towards turn 1, and he might be close enough. He bursts out of the bubble very, very late, and Karwitz looks for the move. Ciocci gives him racing room, he gives him the space to outbrake himself, and then gets the Luzic Racing Ferrari hooked up to run alongside Karwitz as they head downhill. It's side by side into turn 2. Really masterful defensive driving there from Marco Ciocci. Gave Karwitz the space to express himself. He's also been able to keep the Luzic Racing car ahead of him for the time being. Again, a little bit of a flash of the headlights from Daniel Karwitz. Now, Karwitz is in the Pro-Am class as well, so you'd expect that that car might drop down the field a little bit in the second half of the race. Whereas Marco Ciocci is handing over to Daniel Serra, the reigning Brazilian stock car champion. Great racing this at the front of the field. The fight for 7th is still well and truly underway as Toby Sowry up ahead of Riccardo Agostini, now applying the pressure to Andres Saravia. Saravia just dropping back a little bit from the car of Andrea Bertolini, and now that Onslow-Cole's at the front of the field, he is beginning to spread the pack a bit. This fight now some 10 seconds adrift of the race leader. It's great to see the Olymp Audi squad joining the championship for this weekend, and immediately right into the fray as again Karwitz gets a good run on Marco Ciocci as they come through the final turn. The brace of immaculately prepared Ferraris heading past the pit boxes. The green Rinaldi car to the inside of the red and white Luzic car, and this time Karwitz is going to go past, and Ciocci is unable really to respond to that. He might look to try and fight back as they swing downhill on towards turn 2. However, nothing doing as they get on the brakes, move across, take the apex at the left-hander, and then through turn 3, all the while the road just running away downhill. getting a little bit of traffic as well. That's Stanislav Jedlinski. They're about to come on to terms with us. Jedlinski seen them just about. They get past him. Not too much drama. Here's another look at the move, and it really was the textbook Hungaroring manoeuvre. And Karwitz to the inside line, able to get on the brakes, down through the gears, and through he goes. So all calm over the Rinaldi Racing pit box. They're 10 minutes away from the pit window opening, although we'd anticipate that Karwitz is going to stay out until late on in the pit window, probably to when it closes with just 28 minutes left on the clock. In terms of the Pro-Am class, which is the top three in the race overall, Onslow, Cole, Crostani and Karwitz. In the Am class, Martin Conrad currently leads that from Giulio Borlenghi and Antonio Coimbra. Meanwhile, Toby Sari applying the pressure to Andres Saravia. And also as well, just behind, Riccardo Agostini under a little bit of pressure from Matthias Zalski. Into the pit lane, unfortunately, has come Kang Ling, Vincenzo Suspiri Racing Ferrari, and behind there was all sorts of overtaking action underway. It's out of turn one, down towards turn two. Little bit of pressure being applied from the Audi, but at the moment, Riccardo Agostini able to withstand most of it. Just about approaching the 20-minute mark in the race. The order is Tom Onslow Cole, who leads the way. Second, Fabrizio Crostani. Third, Daniel Karwitz. Fourth, Marco Ciocci. Fifth, Michael Mack. And sixth, Andrea Bertolini. Great battles all the way through the field at the moment. Certainly the Audi appears to have no trouble at all, following in right behind the Lamborghini Huracan through this tight, twisty middle sector on the lap. Meanwhile, in the background, Martin Conrad just beginning to close up on the tail of this scrap as well. And last time round, Conrad, a good couple of tenths of a second quicker than the fight going on in front of him. So the AM class leader about to invite himself into the battle. This is the fight for 9th and 10th. And then behind Conrad in 11th, it's a 6-second gap back to Renat Salakov, who is at the head of an almighty scrap in 12th place. So the Olymp Racing team watching from the monitors. Their driver not able to do anything this time around on the brakes as they pick their way through turn one. Nothing to choose between them in terms of lap times last time around, but behind them, Martin Conrad actually wasn't quite as quick. There is the AM class leader, Conrad and Raquina, who had to withdraw on the Saturday morning from the Spa-Francorchamps weekend, therefore not adding to their AM class points tally. So they're currently 29th, or on 29 points in the AM class. They're 5th overall, but only 12 points off the AM class lead. So they could do with an AM class victory this afternoon. The AM class currently being led by Giulio Borlenghi and Andrei Lewandowski, who are second in class as they currently run. So the front of the field, the order just beginning to stabilise for the first time. And Michael Mack beginning to slip towards the clutches of Andrea Bertolini. And Marco Ciocci likewise. And again, the characteristic of the track is going to be quite different from how the teams found it yesterday, just because with heavy rain, a lot of the rubbering in that occurred up to that point will have been washed away to a certain extent. So in second place, Fabrizio Crostani, third place, Daniel Karwitz, 3 seconds between them. Onslow Cole leads Crostani by 2.6 seconds, but Fabrizio Crostani has just set the fastest lap of the race in second place. and therefore whittling down Onslow Cole's advantage ever so slightly. It's Tom Onslow Cole setting his best lap of the race last time around, so 1 minute 44.698 for Fabrizio Crestani. Daniel Karwitz behind a 1 minute 44.939. Marco Ciocci, meanwhile, his pace has really dropped off a little bit. He's just on a 1 minute 46.1 in 4th position, and Mikkel Mack behind him as well in the 1 minute 46-second bracket. And that is why Andrea Bertolini is beginning to latch onto their tail as well. So Ciocci, the pole sitter, flips through the curbs. Behind him, championship leader Mikkel Mack. He's looking at the stiff end of 15 seconds additional time in the pits when he hands over to Alessandro Pierguidi. Andres Saravia and Fran Rueda, they have got 20 additional success seconds. So all this hard work done thus far by Andres Saravia, Fran Rueda is going to have to pick up the mantle as Toby Sowry flashes his headlights. Just a gentle reminder, of course, to Saravia that he's there and rather anxious to get through if he possibly can. And behind in 9th place, Ricardo Agostini is just about shaken off for the moment. Mateusz Zalski. Daiko Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan team, the engineers watching the laptops, keeping an eye on the telemetry. Both their cars well up inside the top 10. Meanwhile, Alberto Di Folco and Renat Salakov have been having a battle royale, and is this the decisive move in it, as Di Folco jinking ahead of the Russian. But Renat Salakov, 13th, is 30 seconds off the lead, but he's got the very, very rapid David Perel will take over from him through the mid-race pit stops, with the pit window opening in 4 minutes or so. We may well start to see a slightly different complexion being put onto proceedings. So over the curbs at turn 4. Meanwhile, Ollie Wilkinson to the inside of Renat Salakov. That was always going to be tight. And Salakov just squeezing Wilkinson, forcing the British driver to jump on the brakes, slow the Optima Motorsport Audi down. Meanwhile, Saravia and Sowry, two drivers who've graduated from F3 championships. In case of Saravia from the Euro Formula Open, Sowry, driver who's had considerable success in the British Formula 3 championship. Both of them doing a superb job of stepping up to international GT competition. And now Sowry all over the tail of Saravia. But the challenge he's going to have is that the BMW is pretty quick in a straight line. There's a lot of torque, and therefore it does rather remove one of the main overtaking opportunities for him. Meanwhile, race leader Tom Onslow Cole continuing to have his advantage, just chipped away at it lap on lap by Fabrizio Crestani. It's 2.2 seconds now. It was 2.4 seconds last time we saw them. Not a huge margin, but still something just to keep an eye on. Daniel Karwitz in 3rd place, and he is now some 5 seconds up the road ahead of Marco Ciocci. And so the Pro-Am battle is going to be absolutely fascinating in the second half of the race, as indeed is the fight for outright race victory. It's going to be thoroughly intriguing. And Sowry has found a way past Andres Saravia, so Toby Sowry has gained the position. And there it is, under braking into the turn 1 hairpin. Sowry darting out at the last moment, leaping to the inside, and therefore able to see off the BMW, at least for the moment. The clock all the while ticking downwards, just 3/4 of an hour to run. And this quartet busy squabbling over 7th through to 10th. They've been inseparable, really, for the past 15 minutes or thereabouts. But they are dropping back from the race leader. Sowry now some 16 seconds adrift of Tom Onslow Cole. So Onslow Cole and the SPS Automotive team, they've done what they would have wanted. They've really stretched the field. Racing Audi rounds the final turn, accelerating through. This to the end of the 15th lap of the race. The field thundering past the pit box and the main grandstand in the sunshine. The rain that we were concerned about, the chance of that would appear, just looking from the commentary box window, to have diminished a little bit during the course of the race, and that's just because the clouds that had formed have rather dissipated. So it's turning into a hot and muggy afternoon at the Hungaroring. So up and through turn 4 into turn 5. Instructions being passed over the radio. Now here are the Lusit Racing Ferrari pairing, Marco Ciocci and Michael Mack. They've got Andrea Bertolini trying to reel in to within touching distance. It's anybody's guess who's going to claim victory this afternoon. But Bertolini and Daniele Diamato in the RS Racing Ferrari may well fancy their chances when all is said and done here, because Fabrizio Cristani, Tom Onslow, Valentin Pierberg and Fabrizio Cristani and Big Ramos, they have both got success seconds to overcome. Daniel Karvitz and Steve Parrow, or Christian Hook rather, may fade as the race progresses. And therefore it will bring this lot into the mix as the pit lane is open, and the first drivers to come in are one of the Lusit Racing Ferraris whose number is completely obscured by the pit wall, and that is Michael Mack, hand over to Alessandro Pierguidi, but also Andres Saravia to pass over to Fran Rueda. So two front-running combinations come into the pits, the Lusit Racing and Teo Martin Motorsport teams getting to work, and neither combination needs to hurry this. They've got success seconds, so you can see the strategy was get them in early, get that pit handicap out of the way early, and then move on from there. Renat Salikov in to pass over to David Perel, Ollie Wilkinson likewise to Bradley Ellis, and Marcello Hahn to Alan Cadet, Alex West as well to pass on to Michele Rugolo in the Pro-Am entry from the Lusit Racing team. So a flurry of early pit stops. Jitong Yang also over to Raffaele Gianmaria. Zdeno Mikolsko takes over from Miro Konopka. You see Bratislava car. So the element of strategy starting to come to the fore. Onslow, Cole, Cristani and Karwitz would anticipate are going to stay out fairly deep into this pit window. The same for Toby Sari in 6th. Marco Ciocci, Andrea Bertolini and Riccardo Agostini. Slightly less clear cut when that pit stop is going to occur. So the Imperiale Racing team just inspecting under the engine covering, making sure that all is as it should be with the 19 car before they get sent on their way. Meanwhile, almost exactly a lap down, David Perel emerges from the pits just behind Onslow Cole, with Fran Rueda behind him, and Cristani arrives on the scene. Now this is bad news for Fabrizio Cristani. Two cars that hear Miguel Ramos be racing later on in the afternoon. Right ahead of Cristani, he's got a low fuel load in the car at the moment. There's also Daniel Serra now taking over from Marco Ciocci. So Serra making his first GTOpen appearance in over a decade. And Toby Sari's also got the 5-second penalty as a result of that collision over at Turn on the second lap with Jitong Liang. So Lorenzo Barrios Viega to take over from Juan Cruz Alvarez. Sends our cameraman running. The Argentine driver out of the car. Portuguese hops in. So this is great news for Tom Onslow Cole. He's got two very quick cars between himself and Fabrizio Cristani. I just wonder whether the Dico Lazarus team may make the call here to bring Cristani in. It depends really how quickly Perel and Rueda get up to pace, and if they're able to match Onslow Cole, then they can possibly leave things as they were. Onslow Cole, the SPS Automotive Mercedes, climbs uphill. This to complete his 18th lap of the race. Thunders through over the line. The lead over Cristani, 2.3 seconds. David Perel, headlights ablaze in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. Pursuing Onslow Cole, and into the pit lane meanwhile comes Andrea Bertolini to hand over to Daniele Diamato. Also Riccardo Agostini, who's come in to pass on to Rick Breukers. So a lot of the pit stops in this race happening very early on. We'll soon be able to give you the order of those that have emerged from the pits. And it appears as if it's Daniel Serra who is the foremost of those who've pitted thus far, from Alessandro Pierguidi and David Perel, then Fran Rueda, Bradley Ellis and Michele Rugolo. Stefano Constantini will take over from Alberto Di Volgo. So this battle for David Perel, as Rick Breukers about to send on his way. Second of the DriveX Mercedes comes down the pit lane. And that is Caco Bueno, something of a legend of Brazilian stock car racing, who'll take over from Ricardo Baptista. And really looking forward to see how Bueno goes at the wheel of this car. Always, from the DriveX team, very, very well sorted piece of kit, always competitive. As I say, this Pro-Am race, wide open, as is the overall race. And certainly Perel and Fran Rueda, if they were in some clear air, they might fancy this a little bit more. So they're 9.2 seconds adrift of Alessandro Pierguidi. Pierguidi, because he does this sort of thing, has just set the fastest lap of the race on his first flying lap, a 1:44.502. But of those that have pitted, it's Daniel Serra who is the foremost, then Rick Breukers, then Daniele Diamato. And that, sadly, looks like a bit of a problem for Lorenzo Berau de Viega in the Teo Marti Motorsport BMW with a much diminished pace, as it's all sorting out behind. Stefano Constantini just ahead of Onslow Cole, who has to concede to David Perel, who jinks around the outside of him. Well, does he? There's not much space there. Onslow Cole fights back, holds his ground. Fran Rueda then looking for the opportunity, if he can, to overhaul the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. So this is not exactly what the SPS Automotive team would have wanted, because Constantini, unlike the four cars behind him, is one of the gentleman drivers in the field. He's very rapid, but he's not quite at the level of those immediately behind him. And therefore, if they can't find a way past the Target Racing Lamborghini, then this might really cause a delay for this quartet. In the background, that's where you can see Daniel Karwitz. There is Karwitz in the other of the Rinaldi Racing Ferraris. So anybody darting for the pits on this occasion? No, yes, they are. Fabrizio Cristani in to hand over to Miguel Ramos at exactly the midpoint in the race. So Cristani deciding to get in out of the traffic. They've got 15 additional seconds in the pits. Meanwhile, Rafael Legia Maria has just set the fast lap of the race, a 1:44.238. So of those that have pitted, it's Daniel Serra who effectively leads the way, 1.8 seconds up on Rick Breukers, with Daniele Diamato just 2.1 seconds back from him. So there's two races going on at the moment. There is the one that's physically for the lead of the race. There is then also the one for the virtual lead of the race, as Onslow Cole, his lead over Daniel Karwitz, now out to 3.6 seconds. Still unable, though, to clear Stefano Constantini, as Marcin Jedlinski takes over in the Olymp Racing Audi. New set of tyres bolted onto the car. Flash of headlights from Onslow Cole as he closes up onto, or attempts to close up on Stefano Constantini, but Constantini, the benefit of fresh rubber, able to fend off Onslow Cole for the time being. battle to keep tabs on here is the one for 9th place there. You can see on the left-hand side of your picture, because Daniel Serra is just a couple of seconds up the road ahead of Rick Broikers and Daniele Diamato. Those 3 cars really quite closely bunched. And Alessandro Pierguidi is only a few seconds further adrift. And that is all happening quite some way ahead of this scrap. 10 seconds or so ahead of it. Now the pit window shuts in 5 minutes time, so Onslow Cole has certainly got time for this lap and one more, and maybe even one more after that. Here is that scrap then, and Miguel Ramos has emerged right in the middle of it, so you just got a glimpse of Daniel Serra, and then it's Miguel Ramos. So Ramos, of those that have pitted, is currently 2nd, and he's got the immediate 3rd place car of Rick Broikers right behind him, with Daniele Diamato trying to close the gap down. So through the chicane they shuffle, Diamato riding the curbs, and Miguel Ramos, if you cast your mind back 12 months, very, very nearly won here in this equivalent race, until he tangled with Johnny Molam. That was when Ramos was at the wheel of the Ferrari. There is Daniel Serra looking to make the move on Stanislav Jeslinski, able to dart past him. Now in the background, there you see him right at the very back of your picture. That's Alessandro Pierguidi. And the more this battle continues, the quicker Pierguidi will get on terms with it. Oh, the move from Diamato. Sells it. Oh, try to sell the dummy to Rick Broikers. And they tangle. Around goes Broikers. He's going to rejoin without too much time lost. Diamato, however, this has cost him 10 or so seconds as Rueda to the inside of David Perel. And suddenly it's all change. Also into the mix as well is Marcin Jedlinski. There he is in the Olymp Racing Audi. Fascinating race, this one. Daniel Karlowitz, 2nd in the race. He's just behind this train as well. It really is impossible to predict the order in which this is all going to sort itself out, as the Olymp Audi looks at the inside of the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. Now, what is absolutely fascinating in all of this is here is another look. There was the attempted selling of the dummy from Diamato. He was sideways on the brakes on the way in, just the slightest of brushes to Rick Broikers. It was enough to destabilise the Lamborghini and kick it sideways. Meanwhile, Toby Sowry into the pits to hand over to Giuseppe Cipriani. That was a sterling drive from Sowry. Cipriani squeezes into the cockpit. A handful of cars yet to make their pit stops, and Onslow Cole right up with Stefano Constantini again. The rest of the queue behind all shuffling through, and Onslow Cole, by admittedly pretty shocking maths, will probably need to come in at the end of this lap, because if he goes much beyond this point, he's at real risk of the pit window having closed around him. So therefore he doesn't want to have to gamble everything to overhaul Stefano Constantini. At the same time, Constantini has at times slowed Onslow Cole 4 or 5 tenths of a second a lap, not a little bit more, and now the SPS Automotive driver darts into the pit lane. Daniel Karlowitz will follow him, indeed he does. So Onslow Cole, the SPS team, they're right at the near end of the pit lane. Valentin Pierberg waiting to take over. Out gets Onslow Cole, in jumps Pierberg. They do have some additional seconds in the pits to consider. Christian Hook will take over from Daniel Karlowitz. Rinaldi Racing team again, well drilled. Brand new set of Michelin tyres being bolted onto the car. Alexander Aquina will take over from Martin Conrad. HB Motorsport MS Racing squad ready and waiting. Again, the team get to work. They've been practicing all the pit stops through the course of the weekend. So once all these pit stops have shaken through, we'll be able to give you a definitive order as Lewandowski and Borlengi complete their pit stop for the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing team. So here is Alessandro Pierguidi, and Pierguidi right up behind Rick Breukers. And Breukers, of course, having had that spin, recovered rapidly. So of those that have pitted, it's Daniel Serra who leads the way. Miguel Ramos is second, Rick Breukers third from Alessandro Pierguidi, but Valentin Pierberg and Christian Hook have emerged. Here they are. So this is going to be an absolutely fascinating 28 minutes of racing. So here is Valentin Pierberg. We'll see who gets through Sector 1 first of all. And that will give us an order to go on. And I think it is Christian Hook. There is Hook in the green Rinaldi Racing Ferrari, who is leading the way. Second place then to Valentin Pierberg. Third place to Daniel Serra. Fourth is Miguel Ramos. Fifth will be Rick Breukers, some way back. And then sixth, Alessandro Pierguidi. So that is the order. So Christian Hook in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari leads the way. We are with the second place car of Valentin Pierberg. And so the additional pit time, enough to give the Rinaldi Racing team the chance to jump the SPS Automotive Mercedes. So this is going to be really, really entertaining, particularly seeing the stoutness of defence from Hook and Pierberg if some of the all-pro combinations behind them are able to close the gaps down. So for the Rinaldi Racing team, they have had so much pace all year. They got that pole position at Spa, the hands of David Perel, and now they have got the possibility of certainly a Pro-Am victory, if not an outright race victory. So the classification then, Christian Hook leads the way, Valentin Pierberg is second, Daniel Serra is third, fourth is Miguel Ramos, fifth Rick Breukers, sixth Alessandro Pierguidi, seventh Giuseppe Cipriani, seventh Daniele Diamato, eighth Giuseppe Cipriani, ninth Stefano Constantini, and 10th is Fran Rueda, 11th is David Perel, and Alexander Traquina is 12th and leads the AM class. We've got a yellow flag over at turn 14. We'll find out what that was for in a minute, and whatever it was, they recovered quickly. And Lorenzo Berau de Viega, who we saw going slowly a moment ago, I have to report, has peeled into the pits. Seems to be out of proceedings. So the gap from Christian Hook back to Alessandro Pierguidi is 16.3 seconds as Raffaele Gianmaria peels into the pit lane. Well, we saw that they were inspecting under the engine cowling, and the doors being opened and the limited level of urgency suggests that that's possibly the day done. Meanwhile, here is the fight at the front of the field, and as Valentin Pierberg gets the heat up into the Michelin tyres, he is right up with Christian Hook in the background. Daniel Serra in the Lusit Racing Ferrari closing, as is Miguel Ramos. This, though, will give us the true indication of the gaps, that first flying lap. As Hook turns through the final corner, accelerating through. The deficit to Pierberg was 7/10 of a second. It's down to 6/10. That lap time 1 minute 45.0 for Christian Hook. It was a 1 minute 45.8 for Valentin Pierberg, which compares very, very well with the cars pursuing him, particularly as that wasn't in clear air. And if Valentin Pierberg can clear Christian Hook in the next couple of laps or so, he is in the box seat for pressing on to an outright race victory. But it's a case, of course, of where does he roll the dice and chance his arm and look to make the move. The Rinaldi Racing team watching on. Well, we know the Mercedes is quick in the straight line. Will he be able, though, to try and force the error from the Ferrari elsewhere? All the while, of course, in the background, particularly if they're running in the 1 minute 47-second bracket, that's where Daniel Serra is able to start closing the gap down fairly rapidly. Unfortunately, also into the pits is Stefano Constantini, the Target Racing team at work. So hopefully he'll be back into the fray. So here's our leading trio, all now in the same camera shot. Pierberg fighting for the lead of the race. Behind them, they've got Daniel Serra. And again, Pierberg just not quite close enough to Christian Hook to commit for the move. Serra and Ramos are closing. Alessandro Pierguidi and Rick Breukers also closing. Breukers in 5th, Pierguidi in 6th. So Daniel Serra has not raced in the GT Open for a very, very long time. But he may be in with a chance of victory here this afternoon for himself and Marco Ciocci and the Luzic Racing team. And this leading group of 6 cars covered by the length of the start and finish straight. Headlights ablaze, the championship leading 51 car, Alessandro Pierguidi, and in the background behind him, Daniele Diamato. And but for that tag between Diamato and Breukers, what might have been for both of them. Meanwhile, here is Michele Rugolo running with Alan Kader. They are fighting for 13th and 14th and Pro-Am points. They're in pursuit of Bradley Ellis as well. Drivex Mercedes looking to the inside of Luzic Racing Ferrari. 22 minutes on the clock. All the way through the field, there are plenty of battles to try and keep tabs on. So these Pro-Am class cars, always worth keeping an eye on, just in terms of whether or not they will race themselves into contention for Pro-Am podium as some of these gaps work through in last stage of the race. And Pierberg again looking to line up the move on Hook, and in the background Daniel Serra getting ever closer. So this is the fight to lead the race. Miguel Ramos about to be part of it as well. And at the moment, Christian Hook is doing pretty much everything that he ought to be doing because he's not made any mistakes. He's just stuck to the racing line. He's making Valentin Pierberg do all the hard work in the SPS Automotive Mercedes. But that has brought Daniel Serra into this fight as well. And Miguel Ramos is not too far distant either. It's on the brakes towards turn 1, and Pierberg thinking about the manoeuvre, but he really needs to be 2 or 3 car lengths nearer by the point that they got onto the brakes, so Hook gets the power down. Accelerating down towards turn 2. He's gone in a little bit tight there, Christian Hook. Is Pierberg able to take advantage? No, he's not. The Rinaldi Racing driver hooks up, accelerates on his way. Now to turn 4, this leading trio, 20 minutes to go. It would be formidable defence if Christian Hook were able to keep the pack behind him. He's been able to do a third of the job so far. It's now Serra right up with Valentin Pierberg. But the challenge is always, it's one thing to catch the car in front, it's quite another to find a way past it. And with an eye as well towards the Pro-Am Championship, Onslow Cole and Valentin Pierberg, they're just 3 points adrift of Crestani and Ramos. It's Miguel Ramos in 4th, who is closing all the while. And now Pierberg's got the run on Hook as they head towards the corner, and he should go through, and Serra's going to go past as well. So Christian Hook, in the blink of an eye, drops from 1st to 3rd. It's now Valentin Pierberg who leads the way as they climb uphill through the left-hander, then into the right. Miguel Ramos looking to latch into this battle as well. The SPS Automotive team smile, but the job is far from done. 19 minutes left on the clock. Valentin Pierberg, his mirrors filled with Luzic Racing Ferrari. If Pierberg sticks to the racing line, does what he needs to do, it's going to be a long afternoon for Hook. Now here is how it happened. It was coming out of turn 10 towards turn 11. And Hook, once he realised the game was up, just let the slightly quicker cars past. But he's still there, 2nd in the Pro-Am class. Michael Luzic, team principal, offers a round of applause. Now this is going to be absolutely fascinating. Multi-mark racing, the Mercedes ahead of the Ferrari, and then the Ferrari ahead of the Lamborghini. Rick Breukers and Alessandro Pierguidi are not closing onto this battle as quickly as you may have thought, particularly now that Pierberg is into clear air. Drive-through penalty for Andrei Lewandowski for speeding in the pit lane. Meanwhile, the incident between Daniele Diamato and Rick Breukers is under investigation, not altogether surprisingly. 18 minutes to go, and this is shaping up to be one of the best conclusions to a race we've had so far this year. You get a sense there just how short these braking distances are in these GT3 cars. There's nothing Miguel Ramos could do about Christian Hook, and all the while, the gap from Pierberg back to Serra opening up. It's now 2.5 seconds from Daniel Serra to Christian Hook. Daniel Serra right with Valentin Pierberg. So they accelerate out of the final turn. Thunder along the start and finish straight down towards turn 1. Now, is Daniel Serra close enough to challenge? Don't know. Is Miguel Ramos close enough to challenge? Not really. Fills the mirrors, but can't do much more than that of Christian Hook. They're also fighting for second and third in the Pro-Am class. And the pace of Valentin Pierberg last time around was a 1:45.7, and that plays a 1:45.5 for Rick Breukers. So Pierberg and Daniel Serra, at the moment, it is really between the pair of them to settle race victory. The only thing that will alter that is if Miguel Ramos can find a way past the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari and then really romp clear in the Lamborghini Huracan. And there's nobody behind who's making any great inroads into that leading group. So over the curbs, this fight for third continues. In the background is Rick Breukers. And here is the ARC Bratislava car. And that a quick spin for Zendo Klausko. Now, what's been also a point of discussion, I'd suggest, in this race is that the Ferraris have got brilliant single lap pace, but they just seem to be fading mid-stint in the way that maybe the Mercedes and the Lamborghinis are not. I don't know whether or not it's a setup decision the teams have made, or they've gone the wrong way with some tyre pressures. But certainly Alessandro Pierguidi in 6th place. He's not eating into Rick Breukers, Christian Hook and Miguel Ramos maybe as quickly as you'd have expected. And the same for Daniele Diamato just behind. So the race leaders powering through. 15 minutes to go. And Daniel Serra shows himself in Valentin Pierberg's mirrors. Pierberg will have the team on the radio saying, just focus on your corner exits, because, quite frankly, if Valentin Pierberg gets the exit out of the final turn, turn 1, turn 3 and turn 10, that is about 85% of the job done in terms of being overtaken by Daniel Serra. It's a drive-through penalty for Fran Rueda as well. He was in 9th position, but not for very much longer. So the tension mounting here at the Hungaroring. 15 minutes to go, the 7th race of the International GTOpen season. It's Valentin Pierberg who leads from Daniel Serra by as much as you can see on screen there, which is very, very little indeed. And this is a battle that's been slowly coming to the boil over the past few laps, but now Valentin Pierberg does not have much of a margin at all over the Luzic Racing Ferrari, but the SPS Automotive Mercedes. It's a car that qualified in 2nd place. Mind you, the car behind him qualified in pole. It is a very, very well-sorted car, but then so is the Luzic Racing Ferrari. They're both quick drivers. In the background, Ramos making the move decisively on Christian Hook. So Miguel Ramos goes 3rd, and immediately challenging for 4th is Rick Breukers. So Breukers in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan, sensing a chance at the podium here as Pierberg accelerates through. His lead over Serra as they came across line was 0.3 of a second. Daniel Serra this time just tries to force Pierberg to brake a little bit too deep into turn 1. Meanwhile, Rick Breukers doesn't want to expend any unnecessary energy overhauling Christian Hook. He's trying to create a gap to the inside there. Turn 1 that was never going to be. Meanwhile, the race leaders swing down out of turn 2 through turn 3. This is where the Mercedes can open up a little bit try and pull away from the Ferrari. They have got Stanislav Jedlinski, the All-In Racing Audi, who's not too far ahead. And that is going to be just a little bit of a distraction for Valentin Pierberg. It's a car that he's going to have to overtake. He'd probably rather not. Now Daniel Serra really closing up on Pierberg through this technical middle sector on the lap. But again, Pierberg can allow that to happen as long as he gets the exit from turn 10. And there's not a huge amount that Daniel Serra can do. You might recall a few years ago, Miguel Ramos putting together a formidable defensive drive at the wheel of the Corvette, doing much the same thing that Valentin Pierberg is doing at the moment. And again, Pierberg, he brakes decisively. He just turns in a fraction earlier than Daniel Serra, just to make sure there's no space to the inside. He does the same again at turn 12, running on uphill. Blue flag for Stanislav Jedlinski. Oh, and that may have just hurt Pierberg a little bit. He's going to be slowed by the Audi through the final turn. Is that going to hurt him as he gets on the throttle? Yes, it is, because here comes Daniel Serra. And this is as close as Serra has been to Valentin Pierberg. If I was Pierberg, I'd be moving across the inside line about. Has emerged in the lead, and it is Daniel Serra. So Daniel Serra has taken the lead. He was right there with Valentin Pierberg, and it did appear as if Pierberg was leaving that defensive manoeuvre until a little bit late, and so through has gone Daniel Serra. So Serra leads the way. Pierberg into second position, 11.5 minutes to run. Has Pierberg got anything by way of response to Daniel Serra? It's an intriguing battle, and you'd certainly argue, but for just catching Stanislav Jedlinski at the worst possible corner he could have caught him, that Pierberg had got it more, well, not quite, more or less under control, but certainly he was doing what he needed to do to keep Serra behind him. And now that Daniel Serra is through, he is ready, trying to ease away. Nonetheless, Valentin Pierberg still leads the Pro-Am class. Miguel Ramos is second in the class and the main championship rival to the SPS Automotive team, with Rick Broikers then in fourth, Alessandro Pierguidi in fifth, and Pierguidi, 8.6 seconds his deficit to Daniel Serra. So there's still a possibility for a few changes in order here. And also, third place, maybe, in the Pro-Am class could come up for discussion before too long. Meanwhile, Christian Hook under pressure from the RS Racing Ferrari, Daniele Diamato, who looks to the inside of the Rinaldi racing car. Hook sees him, and Diamato slips past into sixth. Hook, though, looks to fight back as Diamato runs a little bit wide through turn one. Christian Hook tries to fend off the RS Racing Ferrari. Diamato not having any of that. Hook just outbrakes himself a little bit, possibly watching his mirrors a little bit under braking. So Diamato now through to sixth. Now Christian Hook, that last lap was a 1 minute 48.1. Giuseppe Cipriani is the next car along in the Pro-Am class, and he's 6.6 seconds back from Hook, but at a rate of capture that could make that feel very real before the checker flag. And Giuseppe Cipriani, he's got Fran Rueda and David Perel actually tucked up right behind him. So here's the Rick Broikers Alessandro Pierguidi battle. And Pierguidi has suddenly been able to elevate his pace and is now the more or less the quickest car on track, certainly the quickest of the drivers that are in with a shake of claiming race victory this afternoon. There is the race leader, Daniel Serra. Second place for Valentin Pierberg. Miguel Ramos in third is at 3 seconds behind, but last time through was a second quicker than Valentin Pierberg. Pierberg that time a 1 minute 46.4, 1 minute 45.3 for Ramos, so Ramos does cleave another second out of Valentin Pierberg's advantage in second position. and Rick Broikers a couple of tenths quicker than Ramos. Pierre Guidi more or less matching Rick Broikers. Oh, and here's a big moment for Michele Rugolo, trying to overhaul Marcin Jedlinski. Pained expressions for Luzik Racing Team and Alex West, in particular, whose car it is that was involved in that. In the AM class, it's still Alexandra Hakwina who leads that from Zdeno Mikulausko and Andrei Lewandowski. So Serra flicking through the chicane, just 7 3/4 minutes to run. Barring disaster, victory looks like it's going to head in his direction. It's more about that second place because the rate of capture from both from the trio of Miguel Ramos, Rick Broikers and Alessandro Pierguidi on that Valentin Pierberg suggests that that is not entirely settled. And just through that middle sector, Ramos takes 4 tenths out of Pierberg. Likewise, Christian Hook, Giuseppe Cipriani and David Perel are all in the mix for third in the Pro-Am class, although Fran Rader and David Perel are busy bottled up behind Cipriani. The fight for 8th place. Indeed, there is the battle, and they really are bottled up behind him. And Giuseppe Cipriani, an Italian Formula 3 contemporary of Jacques Villeneuve, is doing a fine defensive job. And this is one of those circuits where, as we were saying earlier on, if you can just focus on getting the corner exits right from a couple of key turns on the circuit, there's not a huge amount you could do. And Rueda and Perel have been running together throughout the stint. On the brakes, the Lamborghini very potent, Fran Rueda, as a result, quite able to overhaul Cipriani. And for Fran Rueda as well, his penalty has been reprieved, new evidence has been found. So he is free to keep racing. And Giuseppe Cipriani, all the while, is closing in onto the tail of Christian Hook, albeit not quite as rapidly as Rueda and David Perel will be able to do if they're able to move ahead of the Daiko Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan. So all these battles around the track. Valentin Pierberg in second. He's just 1.7 seconds now ahead of Miguel Ramos. Ramos just 2.7 seconds clear of Rick Broikers. Pierre Guidi within the second of Broikers. And Giuseppe Cipriani looking very nimble at the wheel of the Lamborghini in the background as well. Bradley Ellis and Alam Kader entwined in battle as just out over the curb there, David Perel. So he's in 10th position. Pursuing Fran Rader, who remains immediately behind Giuseppe Cipriani. Then we've got Bradley Ellis and Alam Kader. The Audi and Mercedes running nose to tail. Just under 5 minutes to go. Where is that change in the order going to come from? Is that change in the order going to happen? So they field thunder through into their 37th lap of the race. It's not going to be a Pro-Am podium for either Ellis or Kader this afternoon. And as it stands, Valentin Pierberg will claim the Pro-Am class victory from Miguel Ramos and Christian Hook. But this battle is just 3.2 seconds adrift of Hook. And there, indeed, you see the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. So at that rate of capture, Giuseppe Cipriani is going to have one lap to try and haul himself onto the Pro-Am class podium, or David Perel might be able to slingshot his way through. It's going to be very tightly run. Meanwhile, Valentin Pierberg has got Miguel Ramos inching ever closer. There he is in the background. Rick Broikers running heroically wide out of turn 10 under sustained pressure from Alessandro Pierguidi. Clambering uphill through these two hairpins that bring the lap to the close. The fight for second through fifth is closing up all the while. 3.7 seconds covering them. 3 minutes and 20 seconds left in the race, and again looking to try and line up for another move on Giuseppe Cipriani. It's Fran Rader and David Perel. But Cipriani doing a magnificent job at the moment in defence, making the cars around him do all the hard work, and as yet to no avail. So they dart across the line, and they may be into their penultimate lap of the race. They may sneak 2 further laps after this one, depending on the pace of Daniel Serra, really when he crosses the line at the end of this lap. So down towards turn 2, Rader in the BMW can't get near enough to Cipriani. All the while they're closing in to Christian Hook, but not actually quite quickly enough on the base of that last lap to put the Rinaldi Racing driver under any pressure. There is Hook, and as Cipriani slows the pace down to defend, it secures 3rd position for Hook in the Rinaldi Racing car. Miguel Ramos now just a second back from Valentin Pierberg, and Daniel Serra, I think, is going to be starting the final lap of the race next time around. So time really running out here for any major changes in the order. Certainly Christian Hook, barring disaster, is looking relatively secure for 3rd in the Pro-Am class. So up into the hairpin. There is now less than a lap time in the race. So Daniel Serra in the Luzic Racing Ferrari accelerates through to start the final lap here at the Hungaroring, as Valentin Pierberg has got a trio of cars getting ever closer to his tail. Is it going to be? It's going to feel a very long lap here for Valentin Pierberg, but the smart money says he might just have enough of a gap. So for Marco Ciocci and Daniel Serra, well, the cars qualified on pole position. They've far from had it all their own way, but it looks as if they are going to emerge victorious this afternoon. Daniel Serra running downhill out of turn 3, up the slight rise into turn 4. The road plateaus at this point around turn 5. Miguel Ramos now just 0.8 of a second adrift to Valentin Pierberg, the same deficit to Rick Breukers, and indeed Alessandro Pierguidi. So that group of cars behind very, very close. Ramos, though, is only going to get one chance, if indeed that. None of this, though, is of any concern to Daniel Serra. For the Luzic Racing team, it looks pretty good for them to have secured 4 victories from the opening 7 races of the season, as the Ferrari thunders on towards the final couple of turns. Here, though, is what's going on behind this. For the last couple of spots on the podium, and Pierberg, at the moment, has got enough over Miguel Ramos to claim that Pro-Am class win, as launching out of the penultimate corner is Daniel Serra. He's just got 1 turn to go. It's been a thoroughly enjoyable afternoon's racing here in Hungary, and Daniel Serra, Marco Ciocci and Luzic Racing claim victory at the Hungaroring in the 7th race of the International GTOpen season. Runners-up and Pro-Am class winners Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow Cole in the SPS Automotive Mercedes, with Miguel Ramos and Fabrizio Crostani completing the podium, and 2nd in the Pro-Am class for the Daiko Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan team. And then in the background, Christian Hook, Daniel Karlovitz are home in 7th place to complete the Pro-Am rostrum. Waiting there in the background, the pink Mercedes, Alexandra Raquina and Martin Conrad claiming AM class honours as well. So a really enjoyable race around the Hungaroring. So many twists and turns, lots of wheel-to-wheel dicing, but also the long-term race strategies coming into play as well. Daniel Serra and Marco Ciocci, they had to work hard for it. That car involved in battles really all the way through the course of the afternoon. That move on Valentin Pierberg from Daniel Serra proving decisive, and in the event Serra taking the checkered flag, 3.9 seconds clear. So the marshals out with the flags to acclaim the drivers as they wind their way back towards Parc Fermé and the podium. It's going to give us an absolutely fascinating complexion as well to the championship battle. Of the, well, here's a look at the final classification then. So Marco Ciocci and Daniel Serra taking victory from Pro-Am victors Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow-Cole. Second in the Pro-Am class, third overall to Fabrizio Cristani and Miguel Ramos. Rick Breukers and Ricardo Agostini fine fourth for Imperiale Racing, with championship leader Michael Mack on the points in fifth alongside Alessandro Pierguidi. Daniele Diamato and Andrea Bertolini in sixth, with then Christian Hook and Daniel Karvitz an excellent seventh and completing the Pro-Am rostrum. The AM podium then, Alexander Hrakwina and Martin Conrad in 15th from Konopka and Mikulsko in 16th, and then Coimbra and Silva. The sporting new Mercedes once more on the AM class podium. Fortunately, some casualties along the way. Alberto Di Folco was spectacular in the Target Racing Lamborghini Huracan, with then that coming together between Jerome Mull and Damiano Fioravanti, eliminating both of them. So Michael Mack then leads the championship now by 15 points over Saravia and Rueda, with Daniele Diamato, the next driver who's not in the 51 Ferrari, some 26 points adrift. That is how they are at the halfway point of the season, but there is still an awful lot of racing to come in 2018. But Marco Ciocci and Daniel Serra, I think, thoroughly enjoyed that, judging by the huge grin from Marco Ciocci. And congratulations all around in Parc Fermé, and why not? Likewise for Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow-Cole.
You drove the best I have ever seen you drive. This was amazing. You took the lead of the race and held it for such a long time.
So Onslow-Cole congratulating Valentin Pierberg, Miguel Ramos and Fabrizio Cristani. That was a hard afternoon's racing from Ramos. He always goes well here at the Hungaroring. Daniel Serra out of the car, smiling. Lose It Racing team offering their congratulations. Have a look at that moment of triumph. All smiles for the team on the podium. And likewise, celebrations really all the way along the pit wall. Some excellent performances throughout the field over the course of the afternoon. Smiles all around, rightly so. Marco Ciocci and Daniel Serra, they prevailed. The end of a thrilling race. Valentin Pierberg and Onslow-Cole second overall in the Pro-Am class victory. Job emphatically done.
Marco Ciocci, Daniel Serra, winners of race one at Hungaroring. Marco, you did the first stint. It was a good start, and then what happened?
A good start. We were still maybe focused a little bit on the rain. No, joking. Maybe pressure was not ready for me. I prefer manage because Mercedes was fast, also Lambo. So we knew with Daniel we should make the difference in the second part of the race. So I tried to avoid mistakes and losing time. And then Daniel jumped in the car and made a great job, as we hope and we expect, and we did it. So.
And Daniel, back to the GTOpen after 10 years and immediately on top of the ranking.
Yeah, I think Marco did an awesome job. The team, we changed completely the car from yesterday. it was we didn't know what to expect, and in the end the car was good. We still have to improve a bit for tomorrow. It was quite tough. It was difficult to overtake Mercedes. They have so much power on corner exit. But anyway, it's really nice to come back with a victory.
Well done, guys. And it's better to have Brazilian drivers than football players, right?
He's Italian. He was not even in the World Cup. Huh?
Yeah, even not. But yesterday we choose to get the Brazil, but you even had him on too. So we don't talk about soccer today.
Podium, guys. Well done.
Thank you.
It was Markovic led at start, 8th, right, shot onto turn 1. To just position, made it through more here, 1. You've just slipped behind as early on. However, far steering, Damiano was ran to the right. Mikel Champion had to work for traction. The just
Second position, Thomas Leclerc, Valentin Pevor. Következő napon megmondta miatt a dobogósoknak. A harmadik helyezett párosnak, Fabrizio Tesztának és Miguel Ramosnak, Luis Ramos megadja át a díjat, a Michelin Motorsport versenyigazgatója. A második helyezett párosnak, Thomas Leclerc és Valentin Pevornak a díjat, Krokofiladjon a Michelin Motorsport technikai igazgatója. És a győztes párosnak, második Csócsinak és Daniel Serrának a díjat, oda ráadásul a Nemzeti Autósport Szövetségnek. Természetesen egy győztes csapat képviselése hálához, hogy ügyes kijelölt, hogy Michael Jutulának, a győztes csapatmenedzserének szintén a lágyámásról jár, hogy a Magyar Nemzeti Autósport Szövetségnek. Ladies and gentlemen, please get together for photographs. A győztes a olyan kategóriában Valentin Filmberg és Thomas Lopról. És akkor érkeznek a díjak, a harmadik helyzet Krisztián Bucs és Daniel Kálin számára a díjat. Tudnék kérni, hogy Sosem adják a vizsgálatot fordító technikai igazgatót. A második helyzet Fabrizio Crestani és végül azt a turizmus fogadják a díjat sportolók versenyigazgatója. És végül a legfontosabb díj a kategóriai győztes Valentin Filmberg és Thomas Lopról számára a díjat Polár Járdásról a Magyar Nemzetközi Sportszövetség elnöke. Ladies and gentlemen, please get together for the official photographs. And now you can celebrate the champagne!
Of Zdeno Mikalsko and Miro Konopka in the ARC Bratislava car, but the AM class being claimed by the HTB Motorsport MS Racing Mercedes of Alexander Hrakwina and Martin Conrad, who took class pole position and led pretty much all the way in the AM class this afternoon, in the end taking AM class victory by 27 seconds.
Ez a GT3M kategória, az amatőr kategória, amelyben a harmadik helyet a mai napon megszerezte third position.
So lots of happy drivers. Antonio Coimbra, Luis Silva, they always enjoy their racing and they're always there or thereabouts in the AM class. They came into the weekend third in class, but finishing well ahead of the two cars that were ahead of them in the class standings. Konopka and Mikalsko, then the all-Slovakian pairing into second place, with the all-Austrian pairing of Hrakwina and Conrad to the top step of the podium. Coimbra and Still, we didn't see masses of them, but they were able to hold on for third in the class by almost 7 seconds over Borlengi and Lewandowski. It was 16th place overall for Mikalsko and Miro Konopka, second in the class. And it was 15th overall and a decisive class victory for Conrad and Hrakwina. And that will help bring their AM Championship Challenge back on course as they hit the halfway point of the season. We have had 7 brilliant races so far this year in the International GTOpen. We have got another fantastic 7 encounters to look forward to. It's been a super afternoon of racing here at the Hungaroring. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. But until then, until our race tomorrow, it's goodbye from Hungary.